The rain came down like judgment. Yuna stood at the edge of the cemetery, her face obscured by a black veil and oversized sunglasses that belonged to a stranger. The cheap coat she wore smelled of mothballs and someone else's grief. Around her, mourners huddled beneath umbrellas, their whispers forming a low hum that blended with the storm. She shouldn't have come. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to disappear back into the shadows where she'd been hiding for the past 6 weeks. But she needed to see this. Needed to watch them lower the empty casket into the ground. Needed to know if he would even show his face. The crowd parted. Kang Ji-hoon emerged from a black sedan, flanked by 4 men whose hands never strayed far from their concealed weapons. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than most people earned in a year, perfectly tailored, perfectly pressed. Perfect as always. Except for his face. Yuna's breath caught. She had seen Ji-hoon angry. She had seen him cold, calculating, terrifying in his stillness. She had seen him across a breakfast table, across a bed, across the ever-widening chasm that had grown between them in those final months. But she had never seen him like this. His jaw was locked so tight she could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. His eyes, those dark, unreadable eyes that had looked at her with suspicion and distance for so long, were rimmed red. His hands, usually so steady, trembled as he approached the casket. The priest's voice droned on in meaningless platitudes. Beloved daughter. Cherished soul. Taken too soon. Lies. All lies. She hadn't been beloved in a long time. And she hadn't been taken, she'd been sent. By him. Ji-hoon stepped forward when prompted, his men creating a protective semicircle around him. He placed one hand on the polished wood of the casket, and Yuna saw his fingers curl, pressing down as if he could reach through and find her. I'm sorry. His voice was so quiet she almost missed it beneath the rain. But she was close enough, recklessly close, and she heard. I thought I was protecting you. His hand slid across the casket's surface. I thought this was the only way to keep you safe from them. From him. Yuna's nails bit into her palms. But I was wrong. Ji-hoon's voice cracked, actually cracked, and something inside her chest twisted violently. I should have trusted you. Should have told you the truth instead of making that choice for you. Should have. He stopped. Drew in a shaking breath. Then Kang Ji-hoon, the man who ruled Seoul's underworld with an iron fist, the man who had sent dozens of enemies to early graves without losing a night's sleep, the man who had looked at her across their dining room table and told her he wanted a divorce 3 days before ordering her death. He broke. His shoulders shook. His head bowed. And tears fell onto the casket that was supposed to hold her body. I loved you, he whispered. God help me, I still do. Yuna stood frozen as mourners shifted uncomfortably. As his men looked away, granting their boss a privacy he'd never needed before. As the rain washed away his tears almost as quickly as they fell. She had come here expecting vindication. Expecting to feel satisfaction watching him play the grieving widower for appearances. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected the raw agony in his voice to slice through her anger like a blade. Hadn't expected her own traitorous heart to clench at the sight of his pain. He straightened slowly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. When he spoke again, his voice had regained some of its usual control, but something fundamental had shifted. Find out who leaked the information, he said to the man beside him. Find out who knew about the plan. Someone talked. Yuna's blood went cold. And when you find them, Ji-hoon continued, his hands still resting on her casket, bring them to me alive. I want to be the one to kill them. He turned to leave, and for one heart-stopping moment, his gaze swept across the crowd. Across her. She held her breath, perfectly still, as his eyes passed over her face. He didn't recognize her. 6 weeks of different hair, different clothes, different everything, and he walked past his own wife without knowing she was alive. As his sedan pulled away, Yuna remained standing in the rain, watching her own funeral come to an end. He'd said he loved her. He'd also sent a man to put a bullet in her head. And now she had a choice to make. Stay dead. Or come back and destroy the man who'd tried to bury her. The safe house smelled like mildew and instant noodles. Yuna locked the door behind her, 3 deadbolts, 1 chain, and peeled off the soaked coat. Her hands were steadier than they'd been at the cemetery, but her mind was chaos. I loved you. I still do. She threw the coat across the single chair in the room and pressed her palms against the cracked sink, staring at her reflection in the clouded mirror. Short black hair, she'd cut it herself with kitchen scissors the day after she woke up in that clinic. Contacts that turned her brown eyes hazel. Cheekbones sharper now, hollowed by 6 weeks of poor sleep and poorer appetite. She barely recognized herself. Good. Behind her, the burner phone on the mattress buzzed. Only one person had this number. Tell me you didn't go. Dr. On's voice was tight with worry before she could even say hello. I went. Yuna. He cried, Doctor. She kept her voice flat, clinical. Kang Ji-hoon cried at my funeral. A long pause. That doesn't change what he did. I know. He ordered Park Miho to kill you. Point blank. I pulled the bullet fragments out of your chest myself. I know, Yuna repeated, her reflection's eyes hardening. She knew. God, how she knew. The memory surfaced unwanted, Park Miho's apologetic expression as he'd raised the gun. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's nothing personal. The thunder crack of the shot. The way the world had tilted sideways as her body hit the floor of the parking garage. She'd been reaching for her car keys. Had been planning to drive to her mother's house to escape the suffocating silence of her marriage for a few hours. Had never seen it coming. The police are still investigating it as a random robbery gone wrong, Dr. On continued. Your husband's people are very thorough in their cover-ups. He's not my husband anymore. The words tasted bitter. Legally, I'm dead. Our marriage is dissolved. Semantics. Yuna, listen to me. I'm leaving for Singapore in 3 days. You should come with me. Start over. You have a second chance. I don't want to start over. Yuna turned from the mirror, her jaw set. I want answers. Answers will get you killed. Really killed this time. Then I'll be careful. Dr. On sighed, the sound crackling through the cheap phone. You're not thinking straight. What you overheard today, what he said, it could be manipulation. Remorse for appearances. His men looked away when he cried. This wasn't for show. Yuna sat on the edge of the mattress, her mind replaying Ji-hoon's broken voice. I should have trusted you. He said he was protecting me from them. From him. Who? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Neither should you. But Yuna's mind was already working, sifting through the fragments of her marriage like shards of broken glass. The late-night phone calls Ji-hoon would take in his study, door locked. The way he'd grown distant 6 months before the end, no, not distant. Watchful. Like he was waiting for something. The divorce papers he'd presented without explanation. I don't love you anymore, he'd said, his face an unreadable mask. I want you gone. She'd signed them. Pride had made her hands steady even as her heart shattered. But he'd never filed them. She'd checked obsessively, humiliatingly, 4 weeks. 3 days after she signed, Park Miho had shot her. There's something else, Yuna said slowly. At the funeral, Ji-hoon told his men to find out who leaked information about the plan. He said someone talked. Dr. An went very quiet. Doctor? That means he suspects a traitor in his organization. The older woman's voice had changed, sharp with concern. If he's investigating, people will start disappearing. You need to get out of Seoul. Tonight. No. Yuna. Someone tried to warn me. The memory crystallized suddenly, sharp and clear. 2 days before the shooting. I found a note slipped under my door at the penthouse. No signature. It said, "He's going to kill you. Run." She'd thrown it away, thinking it was from one of Ji-hoon's enemies trying to cause paranoia. She'd been so sure their marriage was untouchable despite its coldness, that whatever dangerous world Ji-hoon inhabited, it would never reach her directly. How stupidly naive. Did you tell anyone about the note? Dr. An asked. No. I didn't think. Yuna closed her eyes. I didn't think my own husband would actually try to murder me. Then whoever sent that note might still be alive. Might have information. Might be the traitor Ji-hoon was hunting. Yuna stood, pacing the small room as her thoughts raced. I need to know who sent it. I need to know what Ji-hoon was protecting me from. What threat was so terrible that killing me seemed like the better option? This is insane. You're talking about going back into the lion's den. I'm talking about getting close enough to find the truth. How? Dr. An's voice rose. You think you can just walk up to him? He may not have recognized you today, but up close, in better light. I'm not going to him. Yuna stopped pacing, an idea forming. Dangerous. Possibly suicidal. But the only place she could see. I'm going to work for him. Silence. Then, absolutely not. His organization is always looking for new people. Low-level positions. I've seen the recruitment, they're careful, but they need fresh faces that aren't known to rivals. Yuna's mind was already working through the details. I can get a position. Something in the background. Close enough to watch, to listen, to find out what he was protecting me from. And when someone recognizes you? No one will. I'm dead, doctor. People don't look for ghosts. His inner circle knew you. His inner circle barely looked at me when I was alive. The words came out harsher than intended, but they were true. She'd been Ji-hoon's wife in name, a decoration for official functions, but never truly part of his world. He'd kept her separate, distant. Safe. Until he'd decided the only real safety was death. This is revenge, Dr. An said quietly. This is about hurting him back. Yuna thought about Ji-hoon's tears falling on her empty casket. Thought about the bullet scar still healing beneath her ribs. Thought about 3 years of marriage that had turned from cautious affection to cold silence to a gunshot in a parking garage. Yes, she admitted. It's also about that. Revenge will consume you. Good. Let it. Yuna's voice was ice. I died 6 weeks ago, doctor. What comes back doesn't have to be the same person. Another long pause. Then Dr. An sighed, defeated. I can't stop you. No. But I can help you. The resignation in her voice shifted to something harder. Pragmatic. If you're going to do this, you need to do it right. New identity documents. Background story. Medical records that don't link back to Kang Yuna. You do that? I'd rather do that than identify your body a second time. Dr. An's voice softened slightly. You saved my daughter once. When those men came looking for me, you hid her in your apartment. Lied to their faces. You think I forgot that? Yuna had forgotten. It had been early in her marriage, before everything had gone wrong. Before she'd learned what Jihoon really was. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." "And Yuna?" Dr. On paused. "Whatever you heard today, whatever he said, don't let it make you soft. Dead or not, he made his choice. He chose to pull that trigger." "I know." But as Yuna ended the call, she found herself staring at her hands that Jihoon had held during their wedding ceremony, hands he'd kissed on quiet mornings before the distance set in, hands that had reached uselessly for her car keys as she'd bled out on concrete. "I should have trusted you." What had he meant? Outside, Seoul's nighttime traffic hummed. Somewhere in this city, Jihoon was hunting for a traitor who might have tried to save her life. Somewhere, an enemy existed who was dangerous enough that murder had seemed like mercy. And somewhere between the woman who'd died and the ghost who'd returned, Yuna would find the truth. Even if it destroyed them both. The job interview took place in a noodle shop in Itaewon. Yuna sat across from a man who introduced himself only as Mr. Beck, his fingers laced together on the plastic table between them. He was mid-40s, with the kind of face that disappeared in crowds, exactly the type Jihoon would use for recruitment. "Your resume is thin," Beck said, not looking up from the forged documents Dr. On had provided. 2 years waitressing in Busan. 6 months at a convenience store. Then nothing for the past year. I was taking care of my sick mother. Yuna kept her voice flat, uninteresting. Lee Sarah, her new identity, was nobody special. Nobody worth remembering. She died 3 months ago. "I'm sorry for your loss." He didn't sound sorry. Good. She didn't want sympathy. "The position is data entry," Beck continued. "You'll work in our logistics office. Tracking shipments, updating inventory databases. It's boring work. Long hours. The pay is decent but not exceptional." Yuna knew what the shipments really were. What inventory meant in Jihoon's world. She nodded anyway. "I can handle boring." "Why do you want this job, Miss Lee?" "Because I need to infiltrate my dead husband's criminal empire and find out why he tried to kill me. I need the money. And I keep my head down. I don't ask questions." Something shifted in Beck's expression. Approval, maybe. In this world, incuriosity was a valuable trait. "You'll be working in a separate building from the main offices," he said. "You won't have contact with upper management. You clock in, do your work, clock out. Nothing more." "That's fine. If you see something unusual, you report it to your direct supervisor only. Never to anyone else. Understand?" "Yes." Beck studied her for a long moment. Yuna kept her breathing steady, her expression neutral. She'd practiced this in the mirror for 3 days, how to look like someone who desperately needed work but wasn't desperate enough to be suspicious. "You start Monday," Beck finally said. 8 a.m. sharp. The address is in Gangnam." He slid a business card across the table. "Don't be late. Don't make mistakes. And Miss Lee?" "Yes?" "People who ask too many questions don't last long in our company." Yuna pocketed the card, her heart hammering beneath her carefully composed exterior. "I understand." She was 3 blocks away when her hands started shaking. Yuna ducked into a coffee shop, ordered something she didn't want, and sat in the corner booth trying to process what she'd just done. In 4 days, she would walk into a building owned by Kang Jihoon. Would work for the organization that had ordered her death. Her phone buzzed. "Dr. On." "I got the job," Yuna said quietly. "I heard." The doctor's voice was grim. "I have a contact who works cleaning services in that building. She confirmed your hire went through their system." You're having me followed? I'm keeping you alive. Dr. On paused. There's something else. I've been asking careful questions about the timing of your incident. The parking garage where you were shot, do you remember anything unusual about that day? Yuna closed her eyes, forcing herself back to that morning. She'd woken up alone. Jihoon had been gone before dawn, as usual. Had eaten breakfast in silence. Had decided to visit her mother to escape the mausoleum their penthouse had become. No, she said. It was ordinary. Why? Because that parking garage wasn't on your usual route. You normally parked in the building's underground lot. Yuna froze. The elevator was broken. There was a maintenance sign. Convenient. Too convenient. Which meant someone had known she'd have to use the external garage. Someone had planned it, staged it, ensured she'd be in exactly the right place at the right time. It wasn't random, Yuna whispered. Every part of it was orchestrated. Which means Jihoon's operation is more sophisticated than we thought. And the information leak he's investigating goes deeper than one person slipping up. Yuna's mind raced. Someone on the inside helped set it up. Someone close enough to know about the maintenance schedule, my habits, everything. Someone he trusted. The coffee shop suddenly felt too exposed. Yuna gathered her things, keeping her voice low. I need to find out who sent me that warning note. They knew what was coming. They might know why. Be careful. If Jihoon discovers you're alive. He won't. But as Yuna ended the call and stepped back into Seoul's crowded streets, she couldn't shake the memory of Jihoon's eyes sweeping across the funeral crowd. The way his gaze had passed over her without recognition, but also without completely moving on. Like some part of him had sensed something familiar. For days until she walked back into his world. For days to become someone else completely. For days to bury Kang Yuna so deep that not even the man who'd loved her could find the ghost she'd become. She pulled her jacket tighter and disappeared into the evening crowds, just another face in Seoul's endless sea of strangers. Behind her, the coffee shop's television flickered with the evening news. A reporter stood outside a warehouse in Incheon, police lights strobing in the background. The body of Park Miho, previously believed to be vacationing abroad, was discovered earlier today. Police are investigating what appears to be an execution-style killing. Yuna stopped walking. Park Miho. The man who'd shot her. Dead. She turned slowly, watching through the coffee shop window as crime scene footage played. Park's body, a single bullet wound to the head. Professional. Clean. The same way he'd been ordered to kill her. Jihoon had found his shooter. Had eliminated him with the same cold efficiency he brought to everything. But Park Miho was a soldier, not a strategist. He'd pulled the trigger, but someone else had loaded the gun. Someone else had set the trap. And that someone was still out there. Still inside Jihoon's organization. Still waiting. Monday morning arrived wrapped in fog. Yuna stood outside the Gangnam office building at 7:55 a.m., watching employees filter through the glass doors. The building looked legitimate, sleek, modern, indistinguishable from the dozens of corporate offices lining the street. Only the security cameras angled at every entrance hinted at something more. She'd barely slept. Park Miho's execution played on loop in her mind. Jihoon had killed the man who shot her, but there was no satisfaction in it. Only questions. Had Park talked before he died? Had he revealed who else knew about the plan? Stop. She forced herself to breathe. She was Lee Sarah now. Lee Sarah didn't know Park Miho. Lee Sarah didn't know anything. The lobby was sterile and quiet. A receptionist barely glanced at her credentials before directing her to the third floor. Data entry department. As Yuna stepped into the elevator, a man in an expensive suit entered beside her, scrolling through his phone. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing steady. But her peripheral vision caught the way his thumb paused over his screen. The slight tension in his shoulders. She'd seen him before, at her wedding, standing near the back. One of Jihun's mid-level managers. The elevator doors closed. New hire? He asked, not looking up. Yes, sir. Data entry. He returned to his phone. 3 floors passed in silence. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, Yuna exited without another word. She could feel his eyes on her back until the elevator closed. The data entry office was exactly as promised, boring. 12 desks arranged in 2 rows, each with an outdated computer and stacks of shipping manifests. A supervisor named Mrs. Han, middle-aged and perpetually exhausted, showed Yuna to her station without ceremony. You enter the data exactly as it appears, Mrs. Han explained, her voice monotone from repetition. Origin, destination, contents, weight. No mistakes. The system flags errors and I get blamed, so don't make my life harder. Understood. Bathroom breaks are 10 minutes. Lunch is 30. No personal phone use during work hours. Mrs. Han dropped a stack of papers on Yuna's desk. Start with these. The work was mind-numbing. Hours of typing numbers and codes, tracking shipments that were labeled as electronics or textiles or auto parts. Yuna knew what some of them really contained, had learned enough during her marriage to read between the lines of manifest codes. But she typed without reaction, her face blank, her fingers steady. Around her, other employees worked in similar silence. No one spoke unless necessary. No one asked questions. The woman at the next desk had been there 4 years, according to the nameplate, and hadn't once looked up to acknowledge Yuna's presence. Perfect anonymity. At noon, most of the office emptied for lunch. Yuna stayed at her desk, eating convenience store kimbap while studying the manifest codes more carefully. Some shipments went to legitimate businesses, she could verify that much. But others had destinations that were just addresses, no company names. Drop points, probably. Or safe houses. She was photographing a particularly suspicious manifest with her hidden camera when footsteps approached. Yuna's hand flew back to her keyboard, fingers resuming their typing rhythm. She didn't look up. Miss Lee. She turned. A man stood beside her desk, young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His badge identified him as Kim Taemin, operations manager. Yes, sir. You're working through lunch. I'm still learning the system. Didn't want to fall behind. Taemin's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his gaze. Assessment, maybe. Dedication is admirable. But breaks are mandatory. Company policy. Of course. I'll take one now. Good. He glanced at her screen, at the manifest she'd been entering. Electronic shipment to Busan. Standard routing. It wasn't standard. The destination code was wrong for legitimate electronics distribution. But Yuna just nodded. Yes, sir. How are you finding the work? Fine. Straightforward. And the commute from? He trailed off, waiting for her to fill the blank. A test. He'd read her file, knew where she supposedly lived. Sindang-dong, Yuna supplied. About 40 minutes on the subway. Long commute. I don't mind. Taemin studied her for another moment, then smiled, professional, empty. Welcome to the team, Miss Lee. Let me know if you need anything. He walked away, but Yuna caught his reflection in her monitor. He stopped at Mrs. Han's desk, spoke quietly. Mrs. Han glanced toward Yuna, nodded. She was being watched. Not unusual for a new hire in an organization like this, but still concerning. Yuna deleted the photo she'd taken from her camera's memory, too risky to keep, and actually took her lunch break, eating outside where other employees gathered to smoke and complain about the weather. She listened more than she spoke. Picked up the rhythms of their conversations, the way they carefully avoided discussing anything real. These weren't criminals, they were office workers who'd learned not to look too closely at their employer's business. Just like she'd been, once. When Yuna returned to her desk, there was a new stack of manifests waiting. But on top of them sat something else, a small piece of paper, folded once. Her blood went cold. She glanced around. No one watching. Everyone focused on their screens. Yuna unfolded the paper with steady hands. 3 words, handwritten in English. I remember you. Yuna stared at the note until the words blurred. I remember you. Her first instinct was to run. Leave the building, disappear into Seoul's crowds, abandon this insane plan before whoever wrote this revealed her to Ji-hoon. But running would confirm their suspicion. Would prove she had something to hide. She forced herself to refold the note calmly, slip it into her pocket, and return to typing. Her fingers trembled slightly on the keys, but she kept her breathing even, her expression unchanged. Someone in this office recognized her. The question was, who? And what did they plan to do about it? Yuna's eyes swept the room without moving her head. 12 workstations. 8 currently occupied. Mrs. Han at her supervisor desk near the window. Any of them could have left the note. Or it could have been someone who'd passed through while she was at lunch. She worked mechanically for the rest of the afternoon, hyper-aware of every movement around her. The man 2 desks over who kept glancing in her direction. The woman who'd gone to the bathroom 3 times in 2 hours. Mrs. Han, who'd been watching her screen more than her own. At 6 p.m., the office began emptying. Yuna kept working, unwilling to be the first to leave, unwilling to appear rattled. By 6:30, only she and one other person remained, a quiet woman named Young Mira who sat in the back corner. Mira was perhaps 40, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun and the kind of face that suggested she'd seen too much and said too little. Yuna saved her work and stood, gathering her bag. Miss Lee. She turned. Mira was looking at her directly for the first time all day. Yes? You forgot to log your hours. Mira gestured to the timesheet on the wall. Mrs. Han gets angry if the logs are incomplete. Thank you. Yuna walked to the timesheet, acutely aware of Myra's eyes on her back. She filled in her hours with careful handwriting, different from Kang Yuna's elegant script. Lee Sarah wrote in blocky, uncertain characters. When she turned back, Mira was packing her own bag. They rode the elevator down in silence. Walked through the lobby without speaking. Stepped into the evening air where the fog had thickened into a light rain. Yuna started toward the subway station. You should be more careful. She stopped. Turned slowly. Mira stood 3 feet away, umbrella unopened despite the rain. Her expression was unreadable. I don't understand, Yuna said carefully. The manifest you photographed at lunch. Myra's voice was quiet, barely audible over the traffic. The camera you thought was hidden. Mr. Kim noticed. Ice flooded Yuna's veins. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Mira finally opened her umbrella. But he didn't report it. He's waiting to see what you do next. Why are you telling me this? Because I know who you are, Mrs. Kang. The name hit like a physical blow. Yuna's hand moved instinctively toward her pocket where she transferred the knife she now carried everywhere. But Mira made no move to threaten her, just stood in the rain looking tired and sad. I worked at the main office for 2 years, Mira continued. I saw you at the Christmas party. 3 years ago. You wore a green dress and stood alone most of the night while your husband worked the room. The memory surfaced unwanted, that dress, that party, the way Ji-hoon had introduced her to exactly 3 people before abandoning her to his business. She'd left early, taken a taxi home, cried in the bathroom so the driver wouldn't see. I'm not, Yuna started. Don't. Myra's voice was sharp. I watched your funeral on the news. Watched them lower an empty casket. And now you're here, with a different face but the same eyes, working data entry like you're nobody. Yuna said nothing. Every muscle in her body was tense to run. I won't tell anyone, Mira said quietly. Why not? Because 3 years ago, at that Christmas party, I got drunk and started crying in the bathroom. You found me. Talked to me like I was a person, not just staff. Asked if I was okay. Myra's expression softened slightly. No one else at that party even knew my name. But you remembered it. Used it. Yuna had no memory of this. But she tried to be kind back then, before kindness felt like weakness. What do you want? Yuna asked. To give you advice. Mira stepped closer, voice dropping. Whatever you're looking for, you won't find it in data entry. That office is for nobodies. Real information flows through the executive floor. I can't get access to that. No. But I can. Mira paused. I clean the executive offices. Nights. Empty trash, organize files, see things I'm not supposed to see. Yuna's heart was racing. Why would you help me? Because Mr. Kong isn't the man people think he is. And because something is very wrong in this organization. Myra's eyes were hard now. People are disappearing. Not just enemies, our own people. 4 in the last 2 months. Everyone's terrified. Ji-hoon is hunting for a traitor. He's hunting ghosts. Mira shook her head. Whatever you're after, be smart about it. And Miss Lee? Next time you take photos, disable the flash. The reflection shows in the monitor. She walked away, disappearing into the rainy evening. Yuna stood frozen on the sidewalk, rain soaking through her coat. Someone recognized her. Someone was offering help. And somewhere in Ji-hoon's organization, 4 people had vanished. She pulled out her phone, the note still burning in her pocket. I remember you. Not a threat. A warning. The penthouse looked exactly the same. Yuna stood across the street at 2 a.m., hidden in the shadows of a closed cafe, staring up at the windows of what used to be her home. The lights were off. Ji-hoon wasn't there. She'd confirmed through careful observation that he rarely returned these days, preferring to stay at his office or one of his other properties. Running from ghosts, maybe. She shouldn't have come. This was reckless, stupid, the kind of mistake that would get her killed. But she needed something from inside, and tonight was her only chance. Dr. An had obtained a copy of her old keycard. The building security hadn't updated the system after her death, a small mercy. Yuna pulled her hood lower and crossed the street, heart hammering. The night doorman was new, someone who'd never seen her alive. He barely glanced up as she swiped the card, muttered something about deliveries, and waved her through. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt eternal. When the doors opened, Yuna stepped into the hallway she'd walked 1,000 times. The same gray carpet. The same abstract art Ji-hoon had chosen. The same suffocating silence. Her keycard shouldn't work on the penthouse itself, Ji-hoon would have changed those locks. But Yuna wasn't counting on keys. She was counting on the fact that her husband was a creature of habit. The emergency panel beside the door still had the same code, her birthday. He hadn't changed it. Something twisted in her chest, she couldn't tell if it was pain or anger. Yuna punched in the numbers and slipped inside, closing the door silently behind her. The darkness was absolute. She didn't dare turn on lights, relying instead on the city glow filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Shapes emerged slowly: the leather sofa where Ji-hoon used to read contracts, the dining table where they'd eaten countless silent meals, the hallway leading to the bedroom they'd once shared. Everything looked preserved. Frozen. Like a museum to their dead marriage. Yuna moved quickly to Ji-hoon's study, the one room she'd rarely been allowed to enter. The door was unlocked. He really wasn't staying here anymore. Inside, moonlight illuminated walls of bookshelves and a massive desk covered in neat stacks of paper. She pulled out a small flashlight, keeping the beam low, and began searching. Financial records. Shipping manifests. Personnel files. Nothing she didn't already know or couldn't access elsewhere. Yuna worked methodically, photographing anything potentially useful, her hands steady despite her racing pulse. Then she found the drawer. Bottom right, locked with a combination mechanism. Yuna pulled out the lockpick set Dr. An had provided and got to work. 3 minutes later, the drawer clicked open. Inside were folders. Old ones, worn at the edges. The first contained photos, surveillance shots of a man Yuna didn't recognize. Older, maybe 60s, with silver hair and cold eyes. Handwritten notes were clipped to each photo: locations, dates, associates. The most recent was dated 2 weeks before her shooting. Nakamura Takashi. Tokyo. Confirmed sighting. The second folder made her blood run cold. Photos of her. Not wedding photos or snapshots from their marriage. Surveillance photos. Yuna leaving her yoga class. Yuna having coffee with friends. Yuna at her mother's house. Dozens of them, spanning months, each marked with dates and locations. Ji-hoon had been having her followed. Her hands shook as she flipped through them. The timestamps showed the surveillance had started 8 months before her death, right around when he begun growing distant. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten note in Ji-hoon's sharp script. She cannot know. If Nakamura discovers the connection, he'll use her. Divorce didn't work, she refused to stay away. No other choice. Do it quickly. Make it look random. She dies believing I stopped loving her. Better than the alternative. Yuna's vision blurred. She'd been so certain Ji-hoon had simply decided she was expendable. A liability. Something to discard when convenient. But this was different. She dies believing I stopped loving her. He'd wanted her to die hating him. Had orchestrated the coldness, the distance, the divorce papers, all of it a performance to make her believe he didn't care. Because he thought it would be easier than the truth. What truth? Who was Nakamura Takashi? What connection? Yuna photographed everything with shaking hands, then carefully returned the folders. She was closing the drawer when she heard it. A key in the front door. Her body went rigid. The lock turned. The door opened. Footsteps in the entryway. Ji-hoon. Yuna killed her flashlight and pressed herself against the wall behind the study door, barely breathing. Through the crack, she could see his silhouette moving through the living room. He walked like a man exhausted, shoulders heavy, movements slow. He went to the kitchen. Poured what sounded like whiskey. Stood at the window overlooking the city. Yuna was trapped. The study had no other exit. If he came in here, if he turned on the light. "I know you can hear me," Jihoon said quietly. Her heart stopped. But he wasn't looking at the study. He was staring out the window, talking to the ghost he thought lived in these walls. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the darkness. "For all of it. You deserved better than what I gave you. Better than me." He finished his drink in one swallow and walked toward the bedroom. Yuna waited in frozen silence, counting his footsteps. Heard the bedroom door close. Waited 5 more minutes, then 10. Then she slipped out of the study, out of the penthouse, out of the building. Into the night that felt less certain than it had an hour ago. Nakamura Takashi's face haunted Yuna's research for 3 days. She'd sent the photos to Dr. On, who'd sent them to her contacts, who'd come back with information that made everything worse. Nakamura was a ghost. Old Yakuza, officially retired 15 years ago after a territorial war that had left half of Tokyo's underworld in body bags. He'd disappeared from public life, supposedly living quietly in Kyoto. But the surveillance photos proved otherwise. Why would Jihoon be tracking a retired Yakuza boss? Yuna asked over the encrypted line. Because Nakamura isn't retired. Dr. On's voice was tight. My contact says he's been operating in the shadows, consolidating power. Very quietly. Very carefully. Only the old families know he's still active. What does that have to do with me? Silence. Doctor? I asked my contact to dig into your family history, Dr. On said slowly. Your mother's maiden name is Fujiwara, correct? Yuna's chest constricted. Yes. Why? Because 30 years ago, there was a woman named Fujiwara Yuki who worked for Nakamura's organization in Tokyo. She disappeared after stealing a significant amount of money and information. Nakamura spent years looking for her. The room tilted. My mother, Yuna whispered. I can't confirm it. But the timing matches. Your mother moved to Korea 30 years ago, changed her name, never talked about her past. Dr. On paused. If Nakamura discovered that connection, discovered that his old enemy's daughter married into a rival organization, he'd use me as leverage. Yuna's mind raced. Or revenge. Jihoon must have discovered the connection. Realized Nakamura would eventually find out. She cannot know. If Nakamura discovers the connection, he'll use her. Suddenly, horribly, it made sense. The surveillance to track if Nakamura's people were watching her. The divorce papers to create distance. The coldness to make her leave. And when she wouldn't leave, when she'd signed the divorce papers but stayed in Seoul, stayed close, he'd made a different choice. Kill her before Nakamura could take her. He thought he was being merciful, Yuna said, her voice hollow. Quick death instead of whatever Nakamura would do. Yuna. I need to talk to my mother. Is that wise? If Nakamura is watching. She's in a nursing home with advanced dementia. She barely knows her own name. Bitterness crept into Yuna's voice. But maybe there's something. Records, papers, anything that proves the connection. Be careful. Yuna ended the call and sat in the dark safe house, pieces of the puzzle slowly assembling into a picture she didn't want to see. Jihoon hadn't stopped loving her. He'd tried to save her the only way he knew how. And she'd survived to hate him for it. The nursing home smelled like antiseptic and decay. Yuna signed in as Lee Sarah, claiming to be a volunteer visitor. The staff barely checked, they were understaffed and overwhelmed. She found her mother's room at the end of a fluorescent hallway. Her mother sat by the window, staring at nothing. She'd aged a lifetime in the 6 weeks since Yuna had last visited. Her hair was thinner, her frame more fragile. Hello, Mrs. Kong, Yuna said softly, using her married name. Her mother didn't respond. Didn't even blink. Yuna sat beside her, fighting the urge to cry. This woman had fled Tokyo with secrets Yuna had never known existed. Had built a new life, raised a daughter, and buried the past so deep that even dementia couldn't excavate it. I need to know about Nakamura, Yuna whispered. Please. If any part of you can hear me. Nothing. Yuna searched the room methodically. The closet held nothing but clothes. The drawers contained only basic necessities. She was about to give up when she noticed the photo album on the bottom shelf. Most of the photos were ones Yuna recognized, her childhood, school events, her wedding. But at the back, tucked into the album's sleeve, was something older. A photograph, yellowed with age. Her mother, impossibly young, standing beside a man Yuna recognized from the surveillance photos. Nakamura Takashi, decades younger but unmistakable. They stood in front of what looked like a nightclub, her mother dressed in an elegant kimono. On the back, faded handwriting in Japanese, Tokyo, 1995. Before everything changed. Yuna's hands trembled as she photographed it. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered. I'm sorry I didn't know. Sorry I married into this world without understanding what it would cost. Her mother's hands suddenly moved, gripping Yuna's wrist with surprising strength. Yuna froze. Her mother's eyes, usually vacant, were focused. Intense. She pulled Yuna closer, lips moving soundlessly. Mom? Run, her mother whispered, her voice paper-thin. He's coming. Run. Then her eyes went blank again, her hand falling away. Yuna sat paralyzed. Those were the first coherent words her mother had spoken in months. A warning. Or a memory surfacing at the worst possible time. Yuna left the nursing home with the photograph burning in her pocket and a terrible certainty growing in her chest. Nakamura wasn't just a ghost from the past. He was active. Hunting. And Ji-hoon had known. Her phone buzzed as she reached the street. Text from an unknown number. Executive floor. Tonight. Midnight. Come alone. M. Mira. Yuna stared at the message, then at the nursing home behind her. He's coming. She deleted the text and headed for the subway. Tonight, she'd get answers. Or she'd get caught. Either way, the waiting was over. The executive floor was dark except for emergency exit signs casting red shadows across marble floors. Yuna stepped off the service elevator at 11:58 p.m., her footsteps silent on plush carpeting. The building's night security was minimal on upper floors. Ji-hoon relied more on reputation than guards. No one was foolish enough to break into his inner sanctum. Except his dead wife. Over here. Mira emerged from an office doorway, dressed in cleaning staff uniform, her face illuminated by dim hallway lighting. She looked terrified. You shouldn't have come, Mira whispered, even though they were alone. You texted me. I know. Mira glanced down the hallway nervously. I found something. Something bad. I almost deleted the message, but you need to see this. She led Yuna into a corner office, not Ji-hoon's, but someone senior. The desk was neat, impersonal. Mira pulled a folder from the recycling bin. I found this while emptying trash. It was supposed to be shredded, but Mr. Kim must have forgotten. She handed it to Yuna. Look at the dates. Yuna opened the folder. Personnel termination records. For names she didn't recognize, each marked with clinical efficiency, terminated, severance paid, references provided. All dated within the last 2 months. The 4 people who disappeared, Yuna said. Look closer. At the signatures. Yuna's blood went cold. Each termination was approved by the same person, Kim Tae-min, the operations manager who'd questioned her on her first day. But below his signature on each document was a secondary authorization, required for permanent terminations. Kang Ji-hoon's signature. Except it wasn't quite right. Yuna had seen Ji-hoon's signature thousands of times, on their marriage certificate, on birthday cards back when he still gave them, on divorce papers. This was close, but the pressure was wrong. The angle slightly off. "It's forged," she whispered. "I think so too." Myra's voice shook. "Which means someone is killing our people and making it look like Mr. Kang ordered it." Kim Tae-min. "Maybe. Or someone above him." Mira pulled out another document, this one a shipping manifest. "This came through yesterday. Special delivery to a warehouse in Incheon. No contents listed, but the authorization code is the same one used for sensitive shipments. Weapons. Drugs. Things that required Ji-hoon's direct approval. When's the delivery?" "Tomorrow night. Midnight." Mira met Yuna's eyes. "I think whatever's happening, it's connected to this. And I think it's connected to why they tried to kill you." Yuna's mind raced. Kim Tae-min had been watching her since day one. Had noticed her photographing manifests. Had said nothing, just waited to see what she'd do. Because he knew who she was. Or suspected. "I need to get into Ji-hoon's office," Yuna said. "That's impossible. It's locked with biometric security. Only he can access." "Is he here tonight?" Mira shook her head. "He's in Busan. Business meeting. Won't be back until tomorrow afternoon." "Perfect. Or a trap." Yuna pulled out her phone, pulling up the photo she'd taken from Ji-hoon's home office. The note about Nakamura. The surveillance photos. She showed them to Mira. "Do you know this man?" Myra's face went white. "Where did you get this?" "Answer the question." "That's Nakamura Takashi." Mira stopped, swallowing hard. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Kang had a private meeting. Very unusual. He cleared the entire executive floor, sent everyone home early. I came back later because I'd left my medication in my locker. And I saw him leaving Mr. Kang's office. Nakamura. He looked satisfied. Like he'd won something. Myra's hands twisted together. The next day, the first person disappeared. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. Nakamura hadn't just discovered the connection between Yuna and her mother. He'd made a deal with someone inside Ji-hoon's organization. Someone who wanted power. Someone who could forge signatures and eliminate rivals while Ji-hoon was distracted hunting for traitors. Someone like Kim Tae-min. "The shipment tomorrow," Yuna said urgently. "What's the warehouse address?" Mira rattled off numbers. Yuna memorized them, her pulse hammering. "You need to leave," Mira said. "Tonight. If Kim suspects you're onto him. He already knows I'm here." Yuna had felt it all week, the weight of observation, the sense of being watched. The question is why he hasn't moved against me yet. Maybe he's waiting for orders. Or waiting for her to lead him somewhere. To someone. To Ji-hoon. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Both women froze. Mira killed the office lights, pulling Yuna behind the desk. Through the frosted glass door, shadows moved. 2 men. Walking slowly. Checking offices. Security sweeps didn't happen on executive floors. Not at midnight. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Yuna's hand moved to the knife in her jacket. Beside her, Mira had stopped breathing. The door handle turned. Locked. A pause. Then a voice, muffled through glass. "She's here somewhere. Find her." Kim Taemin's voice. The footsteps moved on, checking other offices. Yuna pulled Mira toward the window. 5th floor. Too high to jump. But the building's exterior had decorative ledges, architectural flourishes Ji-hoon had insisted on. "Are you insane?" Mira hissed. "Do you have a better idea?" They didn't. Yuna forced the window open, the alarm system conveniently disabled, probably by whoever had sent those men. She climbed out onto the ledge, the night air freezing against her skin. Behind her, office doors were opening. Systematic. Getting closer. "Go home," Yuna whispered to Mira. "Pretend you saw nothing." "What about you?" "I'm already dead. Remember?" Yuna didn't wait for a response. She moved along the ledge, fingers finding holds in decorative stonework, every muscle screaming. Below, Seoul glittered indifferently. Behind her, she heard the office door crash open. Shouting. Then a gunshot. Yuna didn't think. She moved. Her fingers found the next ledge, her body pressing flat against cold stone as another gunshot cracked the night. Glass shattered somewhere above her. They were shooting blind, trying to flush her out. She couldn't go back. Couldn't go down. So she went up. The building's architecture offered narrow handholds, decorative molding, window frames, anything she could grip. Her arms burned. Her injured chest screamed where the bullet scar tissue pulled tight. But fear was a better motivator than pain. She reached the 6th floor and swung herself through an unlocked window into a dark conference room. No time to catch her breath. Footsteps pounded on the stairs. They'd anticipated her route. Yuna ran. Through the conference room, into a hallway she didn't recognize. The executive floor was a maze of expensive offices and private meeting rooms. She'd never been here as Ji-hoon's wife, he'd kept his world separate from hers. Now that separation might kill her. She ducked into what looked like a break room, pressing herself against the wall beside the door. Her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided to call him. Ji-hoon answered on the second ring. "Yes?" His voice nearly broke her. Professional, clipped, exhausted. The voice she'd heard across breakfast tables and through closed doors. The voice that had said "I don't love you anymore" with such convincing emptiness. "There's an intruder in your building," Yuna said, disguising her voice, lower, rougher. Executive floor. Armed men. A pause. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows Kim Taemin is a traitor." She heard him stand up, heard the scrape of a chair. "Explain." "He's been forging your signatures. Eliminating your people. Working with Nakamura Takashi." Yuna's words came fast, desperate. "There's a shipment tomorrow night. Incheon warehouse. Whatever it is, it's the endgame." "How do you know about Nakamura?" "Because I broke into our home and read your files. Because I know you tried to kill me to save me from him." "That doesn't matter," Yuna said. "What matters is Taemin's people are in your building right now, and someone's about to die." Another pause. Then Ji-hoon's voice turned to ice. "Get out of there. Now. I'm sending." The break room door exploded inward. Yuna dropped the phone, rolling sideways as bullets chewed through the wall where she'd been standing. She came up with her knife, facing 2 men in suits with guns drawn. The first one fired. Yuna was already moving, using a table as cover, her mind calculating angles with the cold clarity that came from pure survival instinct. She grabbed a chair and hurled it. It hit the shooter's arm, ruining his aim. The second man had a clear shot. Yuna dove left as he fired. Pain exploded across her shoulder, not a direct hit, but close enough. She hit the ground hard, her knife skittering away. The man advanced, gun leveled at her head. "Mr. Kim wants you alive," he said. But he didn't say undamaged. Yuna's hand found something on the floor, a broken piece of the chair. Not much of a weapon. But enough. She waited until he was close, then swept his legs with the chair fragment. He stumbled. Yuna lunged for his gun hand, her injured shoulder screaming. They grappled, and for a terrible moment she thought she'd lost. Then her training from another life kicked in, the self-defense classes Ji-hoon had insisted she take, back when he'd still pretended to care about her safety. She twisted his wrist, heard bones crack, and the gun fell. She grabbed it. Aimed. Fired. The shot went wide. She'd never been a good shot, and her hands were shaking, but it was enough. Both men scattered for cover. Yuna ran again, clutching the gun she barely knew how to use, her shoulder bleeding, her lungs burning. She burst into a stairwell and nearly collided with someone coming up. Kim Tae-min. He stood 3 steps below her, perfectly calm, unarmed. His glasses reflected the fluorescent lighting, hiding his eyes. "Mrs. Kong," he said pleasantly. "Or should I call you Lee Sarah?" Yuna raised the gun with shaking hands. "Stay back. You're not going to shoot me." He climbed 1 step. "You're not a killer. That's why your husband loved you. That's why Nakamura wants you." I said stay back. "He's been looking for you, you know. Nakamura. He knew you weren't really dead." Another step. "Your mother told him. In her lucid moments. Before we made sure she wouldn't have any more." Rage whited out Yuna's vision. "What did you do? What needed to be done?" She was a loose end. Tae-min smiled. "Just like you. Except you're worth more alive. At least until Nakamura gets what he wants. Which is revenge. Against your mother. Against Kang Ji-hoon for trying to hide you. Against everyone who thought they could escape the past." He was close now, just 1 step below. "You should have stayed dead, Mrs. Kong. Would have been kinder." Yuna pulled the trigger. The gun clicked empty. Tae-min's smile widened. "The clip only had 3 bullets. You used 2 on my men. Did you really think?" A gunshot cracked through the stairwell. Tae-min's expression froze. He looked down at the red bloom spreading across his chest, then up at something behind Yuna. She turned. Ji-hoon stood at the top of the stairs, his gun still raised, his face a mask of ice and fury. His eyes met hers. And recognition dawned like a breaking wave. "Yuna." The world stopped. Ji-hoon stood frozen, his gun still pointed at where Tae-min's body had collapsed on the stairs. But his eyes were locked on Yuna's face with an expression she'd never seen before. Horror. Disbelief. Hope so desperate it looked like agony. "You're dead," he whispered. "I watched them bury you." Yuna's grip tightened on the empty gun, her shoulder bleeding, her entire body shaking. 6 weeks of planning. 6 weeks of hatred carefully cultivated like a weapon. 6 weeks of telling herself she'd feel nothing when this moment came. She'd been wrong. "You tried to kill me," she said. Her voice cracked. "You sent Park Miho to shoot me in a parking garage like I was nothing." Ji-hoon flinched as if she'd struck him. "Yuna. Don't." She raised the useless gun, kneading the barrier between them. "Don't say my name. You lost that right when you put a bullet in my chest." Behind them, Taemin made a wet, gurgling sound. Dying, but not dead yet. Jihoon didn't even look at him. His gun lowered slowly, his hand trembling. I thought I was saving you, he said. By killing me? Yes. The word came out raw. Nakamura found out about your mother. About the connection. He was going to take you, Yuna. Do things that would make death look merciful. I couldn't, his voice broke. I couldn't let that happen. So you made the choice for me. Yuna's anger was ice and fire at once. Didn't ask. Didn't warn me. Just decided my life was yours to end. I tried everything else. Jihoon's composure shattered. The divorce papers were supposed to make you leave Seoul. Leave Korea. I had documents prepared, money set aside, a new identity waiting. But you wouldn't go. You signed the papers and stayed. Stayed close enough for Nakamura's people to find. Because I didn't understand. Yuna's shout echoed in the stairwell. You never told me why. Just went cold, said you didn't love me, and expected me to disappear. How was I supposed to know you were trying to save me when everything you did felt like abandonment? Jihoon closed his eyes. A single tear tracked down his face. I know. You don't know anything. Yuna's hands shook so hard she had to lower the gun. I died hating you. Do you understand that? I spent my last conscious moments thinking the man I loved had decided I was expendable. That our marriage meant so little you could just erase me. It meant everything. Jihoon's voice was barely audible. You were the only good thing in my life. The only person who looked at me and saw something other than a monster. And I destroyed that because I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth. What truth? That my mother stole from Nakamura 30 years ago? That he wanted revenge? Yuna's laugh was bitter. I figured that out on my own. While I was supposed to be dead. While you were mourning at an empty casket. The truth that I loved you too much to watch you suffer. Jihoon opened his eyes, and the pain in them was so raw it physically hurt to witness. Nakamura doesn't just kill, Yuna. He destroys. He would have kept you alive for months. Years. Made you beg for death. And he would have made me watch, knowing I'd brought you into his reach by marrying you. So you played God instead. Yes. No excuses. No deflection. Just acknowledgement. I played God. Made the choice I thought would hurt less. And I was wrong. Taemin's breathing had stopped. His body lay still on the stairs between them, a physical manifestation of the betrayal that had nearly destroyed them both. He told me, Yuna said quietly, that Nakamura knew I wasn't dead. That my mother told him in her lucid moments. Jihoon's face went white. Your mother. Taemin's people got to her. She's. Yuna's voice failed. She didn't know if her mother was alive or dead. Didn't know if she'd get to say goodbye. Jihoon pulled out his phone with shaking hands, barking orders to someone about the nursing home, about protection, about medical care. Still trying to fix things. Still trying to save what could be saved. When he finished, the silence between them was deafening. I can't forgive you, Yuna finally said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You took my choice, my agency, my life. You decided what I could handle and what I couldn't. That's not love, Jihoon. That's control. I know. He stood there, this man who commanded an empire through fear, looking utterly defeated. I know what I took from you. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right, even knowing I never can. I don't want your penance. Yuna met his eyes. I want the truth. All of it. About Nakamura, about Taemin, about what's in that warehouse tomorrow night. And then I want to decide, for myself, what happens next. Jihoon studied her face, the short hair, the colored contacts, the hardness that hadn't existed before. Seeing not the wife he'd buried, but the woman who'd clawed her way back from death. Okay, he said softly. The truth. All of it. Below them, footsteps echoed. Jihoon's security team, finally arriving. Too late to prevent the confrontation. Just in time to witness its aftermath. Jihoon held out his hand, not demanding, just offering. Will you come with me? Yuna looked at his outstretched hand. The hand that had signed her death warrant. The hand that had trembled on her casket. The hand that had just killed to save her. She didn't take it. But she didn't walk away either. Lead the way, she said. And Kang Jihoon, who'd thought he'd lost everything, began to tell his dead wife how to come back to life.